didn't link to the right microphone, but a lot of moving parts. All right, everyone. So again, I was saying welcome, everybody. I hope everybody is having a good weekend. And this is a members chat class. This is a question and answer session for our members. To become a member, click the join button next to the subscribe button. And this class is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS success. Visit us there. For the general IELTS, check us out at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com on both of those websites. We have lots and lots of materials to help you improve your language, your communication skills. Now, members, you can ask me questions. It's first comes, first serve. And you can ask me questions about English, grammar, IELTS, academic, general. You can even ask me questions about studying abroad, life in Canada, life in Europe, immigration. And I will do my best, of course, to answer you. If I don't have the answer, we can continue the question offline through email. If anybody wants to get a hold of me with your questions through email, you can always do that. Adrian@aehelp.com. That's my email address. And while we wait for maybe a couple more members to join in real quick, I'll show you our websites. This is our academic IELTS website here with the blue background at aehelp.com. And this is our general IELTS website with the green background at gieltshelp.com. Click that big red button to join our premium package. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. We are an IELTS registration center and certified British Council agents. All right. So, Instagram, IELTS_AEhelp or GIELTShelp. And again, remember, members, from May 5th, so this is really important. Today we have two classes, this one, and we have one right after. And then from Wednesday of next week, we will have a new schedule. So our new schedule will be GMAT Universal Time, 12:30 to 13:30 and 14 to 15 o'clock. So for our older members, that's the same time as we had a month ago in Europe, okay? So we will start with a class on the 5th at 14 o'clock Universal Greenwich Time, speaking part 1 for everyone. Okay, so make a note of that classes are changing times. It was far more popular in our vote. 75% of our viewers voted for this time compared to the time that we have right now. So it's kind of a clear decision on our end. Okay, so that's kind of it for the preamble on my part. If you have questions, now's the time to ask, members. So again, first comes, first serve. So ask me a question, and I'll do my best to answer you. Okay, Rajveer, what time will the class be for me? Right now, I'm in Pacific Standard Time, Vancouver time, or Los Angeles time. So for me, it's first class, like on a Thursday, will be at 5:30 a.m., and then the all chat class for me will be 7 a.m. So 5:30 and 7 a.m. in the morning, Pacific Standard Time, which is great. I'll wake up early, wake up with the sunrise. I like doing that anyway. When I go on hunting trips, that's usually how I do it. And then I'll get a nice morning run in after the classes. Kuldeep. Okay, let's see. Sorry, Kuldeep, I'll get to your question in a second. Jainiel is asking, I have a confusion on question tags, grammar topics. I see that this is used extremely in English movies and TV. Okay, Jainiel, yeah, Roger, 5:30 is quite early, but I'll have everything set up. I'll be up at 5, teaching at 5:30. It's fine. Early bird catches the worm. In fact, they say waking up at 5 o'clock is kind of the ideal time. And when I'm out in nature, Rajveer, doing hunting, that's usually when most other large mammals like deer wake up, is with the sunrise at around 5 a.m. In this part of the world anyway. Okay, so Janelle, tag questions. Okay, grammar. All right. So I believe you're asking me about tag questions, Janelle, right? Such as, I think your question is, can you clarify tag questions? So correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but this is what you're asking me. So question like, you had seen this movie last month, hadn't you? Okay. You've been to India before, haven't you? You liked the dinner I made, didn't you? Okay, so are you asking me about these types of questions, Janelle? Yeah? Okay. It's a good question. I'll go through tag questions briefly. Tag questions, Janelle, are a big question. Okay. Tag questions are questions that look for verification. Okay. They seek verification from the listener. They are closed questions, which usually seek yes and no responses. Okay. And I can tell you a few more interesting points about tag questions. They are usually a poor form of communication, especially with people you care about, like family, because they force an answer and they are often assumptive. Okay, and I'll give you another interesting fact about tag questions, Janelle. So let me explain these a little bit for you, okay? So tag questions, where we usually ask them from the audience when we're not truly interested in their open opinion. Like instead of saying, what did you do today, which has a million different responses possible. If I say, you went to the park today, didn't you? Then that question will get one of two responses. It's going to be either, yes, I went to the park, or no, I didn't go to the park. Why do you think that, right? So let's, for example, I'll give you an interesting situation here, Janelle. Let's, for example, say that there is a jealous boyfriend, and the jealous boyfriend thinks that he saw his girlfriend with another guy at the park chatting on a bench. Okay, and maybe it was just a look-alike, a doppelganger, but he's sure that it was his girlfriend. So instead of asking openly, which is the better way to communicate, of saying, where were you today, or what did you do today, to let that person explain or express themselves clearly without prejudice or bias, the jealous boyfriend might say, you were at the park today, weren't you? And then, of course, that person will say, whoa, easy. No, I wasn't. Why do you think that, right? Or they'll say, yes, I was. I had to meet a classmate to discuss a project, right? So it's kind of a, again, psychologists will say tag questions are usually not a good form of communication. Okay, so that's an interesting point about tag questions. They belong to a group of questions called rhetorical questions, where oftentimes the speaker knows the answer. They're just looking for a reaction. Okay, so tag questions belong to rhetorical questions, whereby often the speaker knows the answer, and they are looking for affirmation. Okay, which means affirmation or confirmation, where the person says, "Yes, you got me. I was at the park with another guy." Okay, and so they are closed questions. Okay, and they're often a poor form of communication. However, there is something really interesting with tag questions when it comes to English and other languages as well. So I speak, as many of you know, I speak Japanese at a conversational level, and I also speak Hungarian quite fluently, and dabble in Spanish and French as well. And all of these languages, and I guess probably Hindi, Punjabi, and many other languages as well, have these tag questions, okay? Because they express a type of thought or human nature. And they're so common that we actually shorten these, okay? So you can often tell where English speaker is from, or where English, based on the type of tag they use for their tag questions. Okay. All right, so an example here is when we talk about the weather, often people will say, "It's beautiful weather, isn't it?" However, you'll find that most native speakers will not actually say the tag part, Janil. So most native speakers won't say, "Isn't it?" Instead, they have kind of a common expression. Okay, so it's beautiful weather, A. I'm Canadian, so I use A as the tag. And that A automatically expresses the "isn't it." It's kind of like a cheating or cheap shortcut. It's beautiful weather, A. Okay, that's going to be a Canadian or a Kiwi, depending on inflection or deflection. Okay, I'll explain that. If you're confused, it's fine. Of course, the tag uses the verb of the primary phrase, right? Okay, you saw with my other examples, had, hadn't, right? So it's the positive it's the negative, and it reverses. Okay, so it's, isn't. Okay, you've been, haven't you? Okay, so that's how it works. But because we use these often, we generally don't actually use the tag. We replace it with a much simpler single syllable. Okay, I'll throw this back at you a little bit. Anybody know what Americans often say? So what's the American tag? And I'll explain the Canadian-Kiwi difference in a second. Okay. So American tag questions end with. Now, it's not always true, these endings. There is sometimes a mixing, but in most cases, you'll get this, okay? So anybody know what Americans use for their tag questions? Canadians use A. What do Americans use? And it's interesting how this kind of separated among different dialects of English, okay? In Japanese, they use na. They go, oishii na. It means delicious, isn't it? Or ne, oishii ne. Okay. Janil says, right. Yes. They use something else even more often than right. British tend to use right, Janil. Americans will use right at times. British often will use right. I should say usually end with. Right. Right. So British, you're always going to hear that right. Beautiful day, right? You're going to hear that from other places in the UK as well. Yeah, so right is more often British. American is... Anybody else? Want to take a stab at it? Americans usually end it with huh. Okay. So, not called deep, good try, but it's huh. Huh. Okay. I was walking in the park the other day, and there was a person there, and they said exactly, this was about 2 weeks ago. There's a park near my home, and of course, I'm quite close to the American border on Vancouver Island, and we do get a lot of American visitors here. Or a lot of Americans even living here. And I was in the park, and this man said, beautiful day, huh? And I said, yeah, you visiting from the States? And he's like, yes, I am. So it's an immediate giveaway for Canadians. Canadians almost never will use huh. Okay, so he said, beautiful morning, huh? And I said, it is, isn't it, eh? Okay. This point here about the Canadian or the Kiwi, Kiwi is New Zealand. New Zealanders use a as well, but it sounds a little bit different. So Canadians will say beautiful day, a, and they'll go up. They'll go a, and New Zealanders will kind of go down with it. They'll go a little bit more downward, or a little bit more deflective sound than inflective sound. So that's the difference between the Canadian and the New Zealand A. We'll often say, so right is one that kind of has been adopted by Canadians, Americans. So you will hear at times Canadians or Americans say right. However, it's much more common for the British. Brits will very often use right in their tag questions. So that's kind of one way that you can start to pick up on where that person might be from or where they might be living, because we actually adopt the tag questions of the place where we're living if we live there long enough. So that's kind of an interesting point. And that's tag questions in a nutshell. As far as the grammar is concerned, you can use any form of grammar: present perfect, progressive, past perfect, simple present tense. The important part is that the tag phrase retains the same grammar as the main clause or the main phrase. Okay, does that make sense? So does that give everybody an idea about these tag questions? Okay, and again, I don't recommend using as a student of psychology, I don't recommend using too many tag questions in your everyday life, whatever language you're speaking, because it pigeonholes your listeners. It forces them into situations where they might not want to be, and you don't get their open and honest opinion. And especially when you care about people, or in business, when you want to develop and grow your business, you want to have more open communication that's more patient so that you can develop ideas. Okay, so tag questions can be useful, but limited. Okay, everybody get that about tag questions? So a little bit about the nature of tag questions, the culture of tag questions, and the psychology of tag questions. So maybe I went a little overkill, Jaineel, but again, that's what you have to think about when you think about tag questions, and they do seem to exist in basically every language. Okay. Of course, in English as well. You should practice them when you're practicing English, no doubt. Okay. All right. Jaineel says that's clear. Rashika says yes, that's clear. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see what other questions. So I'm sure you're kind of tuned into me there, and I'm definitely looking for other questions as well. And we have some more students here. So okay. Let's see. So Kuldeep is asking, why is there a delay in Ielts exam results? Okay, Kuldeep, I'll talk to you about that in a second here. Okay. So Kuldeep, I'm just going to do initials to be quick. Okay, so Kuldeep is asking, why is there, I would say, why can there be a delay in IELTS exam results. Okay, let me answer this for you clearly, Kuldeep. So we do have a lot of information on this. We've been asked about this by many students. We've talked to British Council about this. I experienced this process when I did my IELTS exam back in late February. So here is the gist of it, okay? So you should have your IELTS result online within 3 days when you log into your IELTS candidate portal. And usually you should have your official certificate in your mailbox within 2 weeks. Quite often within 10 days. Okay. So that would be kind of the normal. Okay. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Okay. So when you actually check, if you registered online, you go through the registration process and you tick a lot of the I agree, click next boxes, right? For a lot of you that are registering online. And there's actually quite a bit of fine print in IELTS as well. A lot of students do not know this, but there is a lot of fine print in IELTS. So British Council and Cambridge and IDP, together, these three organizations have complete control and power over what happens. And at the end of the day, what they decide, that's what happens. They work hard to keep the integrity of the IELTS to have it function as well as possible. And because of that, what can happen is at times results can be withheld for 3 weeks or more because of investigation of the exam. Okay. This can be investigation of one or more candidates or of the exam center and its administrators. Okay. So if this happens and you didn't cheat, you didn't do anything wrong, don't worry. They will sort it out. They will get you your marks, but sometimes it takes a bit of time because, like a sort of police, they literally have to go and investigate the exam. And that means that maybe one or more candidates were cheating, or it could mean that there was a mistake in the exam. Somebody by accident didn't do what they should have done in the exam. That can be a vigilator, somebody that's administering the exam or marking the exam. Sometimes there can be a problem even in the administration. So with the IELTS, of course, as many of you know, there's a lot that is connected, or a lot that's riding on the exam. And I guess a non-idiomatic way to say that is there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of consequence of the exam, whether a person can go to another country or get into a school. And because of that, there can be some interesting things where somebody basically tries to find who is marking their exam and says, I'll give you $10,000 if you give me band 8s because I'm trying to get into medical school and I need this exam. And for some people who are marking the exam, that's a lot of money. And the exam is taken by 3 million people in thousands and thousands of test centers worldwide. But IELTS, Cambridge, IDP, British Council, they are responsible for what happens next. So if somebody gets into a university and they didn't actually do the exam, or they didn't do as well as they got on the exam, then the university will contact Cambridge and will contact British Council and say, hey, we have a student here who supposedly has a Band 8. They just took a seat from another medical student who sent their application, and they clearly don't have good enough English. What happened? So so cheating on the IELTS and problems with the IELTS, it's not a small problem. It's not like cheating on your math test in high school. It is considered a very, very big problem. It's considered an international crime. Fraud, and there are serious consequences, including travel bans or bans from universities across the world. So bans from being able to immigrate to a country. So this is taken very seriously, and there are separate groups of professionals within IELTS, Cambridge, British Council who are responsible for compliance. So just like in a bank, when you have a compliance department that oversees the operation of the bank, you have kind of a compliance department in IELTS as well that makes sure that the test is done the way that it should be. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. Okay. So Kuldeep saying due to COVID-19 restrictions, yeah, that's going to happen. Kuldeep, that's been happening for the last year and a half with the delays. So the actual delay in the test date, absolutely, that's happening. There can be, and I know that especially in India right now, Kuldeep, there's a new type of COVID variant that is wreaking havoc, and a lot of people are getting very sick, and a lot of people are dying. So of course they're going to cancel and delay a lot of the exams right now. And IELTS is a high risk situation. Keep that in mind. Okay, so yeah, so the whole COVID situation, the elephant in the room, right? So over the past 18 months, roughly, have been either delayed or canceled because IELTS is a high risk context for infection. There are often people from several places in the country or the world in a small room breathing the same air for hours. So that's why I call deep. Okay. And of course, they'll contact you and they'll do their best to reschedule. Believe me, Kuldeep, IELTS is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and a lot of other industries like universities, immigration offices depend on IELTS. So you can imagine that they are doing everything in their power to have these exams function as best as possible while maintaining their integrity and reliability. I think sitting the computer-based exam is a little bit safer during COVID because you're separated in booths, so you have a little bit more separation. I haven't seen the paper-based recently. There is an alternative for academic students. It's called the Ielts Indicator. And if IELTS is not available in your country because of COVID, you might still be able to do the IELTS Indicator exam, okay? So check into that. That's just for academic students, not for general, okay? It's called the IELTS Indicator exam. You can do it from home. But remember, it is not a full replacement exam. So even if you pass, you may still need to take the regular IELTS at a later time. Okay, just because it's easier to cheat on that exam. And I believe it's IELTSindicator.org off the top of my head. Okay, so check that out, or maybe IELTSindicator.com. All right. Yeah, so that's how it is for during the COVID, right? Because again, you get an international crowd, you get people from all over the city or all over the country, and it's a high infection, high risk area. So of course they're going to delay the exams, and they don't want the people working for IELTS to get sick either. So I'm sure that in India right now there are a lot of people being kind of pushed to a later time to take their exam. Okay. All right. Let's take another question here. So Kuldeep, does that make sense? Does that kind of answer your question? And unfortunately, Kuldeep, until there isn't a solution for this COVID situation in India right now with this new variant, I have a feeling that they're going to keep pushing the dates forward until the situation becomes resolved, the numbers decrease. Okay, so even if they tell you, oh well, no, you'll do your exam next month, if the situation doesn't change next month in May, then or in June, then they're going to keep pushing it. Okay, all right. Rajveer says, in the speaking module, I tend to do self-correction, sometimes for answering every alternative question. Do you have any tips to reduce it? Self-correction is okay, Rajveer. I'd have to really hear you speaking, because if you're self-correcting, that's fine. One way to reduce self-correction, Rajveer, is slow down a little bit. Slow your speech, okay? If you speak a little bit slower, notice how sometimes I drag my words when I'm holding a lecture. The exact reason for that is so that I don't have to self-correct as often. People who talk faster tend to self-correct more because they tend to stumble more. So it's that concept of think before you speak. And if you're speaking very quickly, then you have to correct more often. So speak a little bit slower would be my first tip. And of course, with practice, it will get better as well. Okay, Tahira, are you still here? Tahira is asking, hi, what can you advise us for people who are taking the IELTS exam for the first time, especially for my vocabulary range? Are you still here, Tahira? I want to make sure that you get my answer. All right, and it's good to have you in the class. I don't see you often enough. One way to improve your vocabulary range is to be in this class often and repeat what I say and copy new vocabulary, especially vocabulary that you're not familiar with. Well, one thing to hear that you can do for vocabulary, okay, lexical resource, as they often call it in the IELTS exam, on our website, it's absolutely free. You don't have to pay for this. You can create a free account. You go to your My Student account. And then in your My Student account, up in the top right here, you have a blog with lots of articles. We post articles there all the time. So here you have our blog. You have IELTS Speaking Part 3, Positive Thinking Band 9. And then here on the right, you have IELTS blog search. And do we have a separate? Yeah, we have a separate category for IELTS vocabulary in our blogs as well. We also have some videos as well for blogs. Okay, Tahira, if you're here still. And if you go on that vocabulary, there's several different ones here. So there's IELTS Band 9 linking words, connectives, so vocabulary that helps you connect words. There's vocabulary here with 570 words that are very frequently used in the English language. So here you have a nice article on what to do, how to learn these, and then you have a whole bunch of words, and you can pick 3 to 5 words each day to learn, and then off you go. Okay? All right. So you would pick the word assess and then create an interesting, complex, compound sentence that includes yourself. So I hope that the examiner who assesses my speaking in the Ielts exam next week will not only give me a great mark, but will be very kind and polite throughout the interview. Boom, now you'll remember the word assess, okay, in this complex compound sentence that includes you. Just make sure you write that example and then practice it, go back, revisit, relearn it a couple days later, okay? That's it in a nutshell without doing a full lesson on vocabulary and vocabulary learning. All right. Any questions about that, members? Okay. Not seeing too much chatter here in the in the chat today. It's feels like a lot of ears, but not so much typing. So, all right. That was Tahir's question, and I don't see any other questions. So, unless my chat froze, which could be the case too. All right. Is that clear on vocabulary, everyone? Give me some thumbs up. If I don't see your thumbs up, that means that my chat might have frozen as well. So let's see if that's the issue. Then I'll have to refresh the page. Last thing I see is Kaldeep saying, yes, sir. Okay. Let me do a quick page refresh here. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, okay, Jaineel, I see a comment by you. You can share a new one with us any kind of. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Jaineel. You'll have to explain that a little bit clearer. Okay, that's great. So thank you for those questions, everyone. I'm going to finish up there for today then. Again, if you think of a question after the class, you're like, oh, I just remembered I really wanted to ask Adrian about this, and I'm going to lose sleep over it if I don't. No worries. Just send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com, and you can certainly get a hold of me there, so I will answer you in short time or in due time. Okay? And I will be back in about 45 minutes with another class, everyone, the last class of the week. It'll be a speaking part 2 cue card. It's kind of a fun one that I picked for today. Everybody will be able to join in on that chat. Okay, so speaking part 2 cue card. Come back for that and hang out with me. Do a little bit more English. It'll be good for you. Okay, that's it for now. Again, for everybody watching, remember to visit us at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. I'm Adrian. I'm signing out from Victoria for now. I will be back in 45 minutes with another IELTS lesson where everybody will be able to join in, and I hope to see you all. Bye for now.